Small habits create big change. Welcome to the New Money Habits podcast, where we help you build healthier habits for money and life so you can live with more peace, confidence, and purpose. Alongside my co-host, Mary Ann Stenquist, I'm Nino Villa, and today we are joined by Andy Ellwood, the creator of Stretch, a mobile app that helps you stretch your money at the grocery store before you even leave your home. If you've ever walked into a grocery store with a list, a budget, and good intentions and still spent more than you expected, you are not alone. Food costs have increased, but many people are also spending more mental energy trying to manage groceries. They're comparing stores, chasing sales, using coupons, buying in bulk, and yet still feel frustrated. So, Andy, what trends were you seeing that made you think grocery shopping needed a better solution?
I am a new father. My daughter is almost 11 months old, and my trips
Congratulations.
to the grocery store starting to look a lot different. Leading up to her birth, things that my wife needed, after her birth, things that we needed in the household, and so in buying new things going onto the grocery list, I was like, okay, well, how much do those things cost? And I realized the only way for me to find out was to go to stores, or to download their app and try and figure out, okay, well, this store has it for this price, and this store has it for this price, and this store has it for this price. And then when I started to look at, I wanted something to tell me what my whole list of things cost at a store. I was having to do a lot of work, a lot of research, a lot of back and forth, looking at their website, looking at their delivery options, looking at their curbside pickup options. And I was like, why is there not a source of truth for groceries, the thing that we buy most frequently? And that for a lot of families has become the third or fourth, and for some people, the second most expensive part of their household budget. Everything else that we buy, we have some source of truth, some place that we know, if I want to buy these things, these are my trade-offs, right? Zillow for your home or Expedia for travel. But for groceries, there wasn't anything. And I said, that seems like a problem that should be solved by now. And didn't find a solution, so decided to create one.
So what are you seeing families struggle with most right now when it comes to groceries?
The feeling of I'm doing something wrong or I'm not doing as good as I could. The speed with which prices change, the amount of games that seem to be being played in the industry. I just want to feed my family, and I don't want to overpay. And it seems really hard. And with food prices being up 32% since the pandemic, and no signs of coming down anytime soon, it seemed like this was a really great use case for taking a lot of the advancements in technology and a lot of the things out there and creating what really comes down to a pretty simple solution, but it's really complicated on the back end. And that was the thing that I saw as a startup guy and a founder. I was like, I think we can do something about this. And what I'm seeing from shoppers is they don't feel like they have extra time or extra money, and that every day is a trade-off, that they have to pick between one or the other. And being able to have that source of truth as a way to come back to, well, at least I know what the trade-off is. It costs me $8 more, or it costs me $20 more, but the store is right down the block. So today I'm just going to pay the extra price. But oh, you know what? The kids are, at a birthday party. I've got a little bit extra time. We're on the other side of town. I can make that bigger purchase this week because I planned ahead. That's the type of relief, that kind of deep breath of oh my goodness, thank you, is what we're trying to do for all those household CEOs and grocery shoppers out there.
I completely agree with what Andy was saying. It's a trade-off with money, time, and that phrase of time is money, but what do you have more of on certain days? But seeing that monetary value of I can save X amount of money by just going a little further or planning ahead, it really makes the trade-off easier to see what it actually costs, either in time or money. And I just love that idea that you saw the missing element in the market and it was born out of your struggle and talking with others, and everyone's experiencing the same thing. And a lot of the chaos is coming from the lack of feeling in control. You can't set the prices, you can't set the gas prices either, but you can control the day-to-day choices of what you make.
I think what I've noticed in it's kind of common when it comes to groceries is there is a lack of planning on the front side. And it's that lack of planning that ends up kind of biting us in the butt later because we didn't plan. And so we're just kind of going. And oftentimes when we're just going, we're looking for conveniences, and conveniences cost money. And so I'm just curious, Andy, what have you noticed about just that element of planning versus not planning, and how that affects people with their groceries?
I think that we did a lot of research before diving into this, and we spoke with thousands of shoppers before we built the app. And over 90% of people shop with a list of some kind. But I think that it's a lot of times what the difference between what they walked in intending to purchase and what you walked out with, what's actually on the receipt, is where you get into trouble, right? They always say don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry, for
Guilty.
good reason, right? The entire store is designed for you to find that one extra thing that you didn't realize you needed. I don't know why, but cookies only are available at the cash register, and they always end up in my cart. And I think that it's it's just the psychology of the way the stores were designed. And so I think that going in with a plan really gives you an upper hand. But especially when you go in and with Stretch, be able to go in with a plan that you feel good about, right? Before you got to the store, you did a little bit of work so that you can go in knowing I have a plan, and I'm going to be able to do what I came here to do. Is something that we're seeing from a lot of shoppers. The internet is not always kind, but when we're putting something out there for the first time, we're getting a lot of feedback, and I want feedback from every shopper that uses Stretch. But most of the feedback that we get, and I read every email, starts off with, first, thank you for trying to do this. Second, here's
Mm.
how you can do it better. Right. And that there's nothing that I appreciate more than somebody taking time to let me know what they'd love to see next and what they think, it could look like. Because they don't have to do that. They could just delete the app and say, it didn't work for me. I'm going away. But as a 40 something year old man, I didn't expect to be able to say this, but I keep going viral on TikTok. And people, I'm just telling people what I'm building and why I'm building it. And last weekend, like 500,000 people saw my video talking about the new feature that we're putting out for Stretch. And in the comments, they were just like, "That's awesome, but could you also do this?" And those are all things that like I love to see, and it's the type of encouragement that helps me know that we're on the right path. And that type of encouragement, not only as the creator of the app, but also as somebody who was dealing with it myself, is just the feeling of not being alone, right? And I think that that's the part that everybody has their way of doing things, and they're like, I think this is working, and I think this is right. But seeing that people are really looking for a unified solution, something. I was talking with one shopper who they downloaded Stretch and were using it, and they're like, this literally gave me my Saturday mornings back. That they were spending all this time doing all this research, and we just put it all in one place, and that's one of many stories that I'm really excited by.
I love what you said, Andy, with everyone has a list, or most everyone has a list, but your app is filling that need of they don't have a price in mind. So you might have a list, but how much am I expecting to pay? And that's a really valuable piece. You want to almost challenge yourself to equal that or make it less than. And so those impulse buys should be less frequent because you have an idea in mind versus following a list and it's like, oh, I don't know the cost. What's one more thing of Oreos, or what's this impulse buy going to be? So I love that you filled that hole that was missing.
Growing up, we basically played The Price is Right with my mom when we were at the grocery store, and we would all guess how much all that food in the cart was going to cost. And you don't know until they check you out, right? And it's so funny that exists in $1 trillion industry. We're all guessing how much we're going to pay for things every week. We know, and it's increasingly more, right? Some of the funniest memes on the internet, or at least on my corner of the internet, is just, what it used to cost versus what it costs now for, and those prices just they feel out of control. And so things feel out of control because we have to do it.
I noticed that in my own home, like, first of all, if you haven't heard of the trend, like, I let Target tell me what I want. For me, it's Costco, right? Like, when I go to Costco, Costco tells me what I want, which is a horrible way to shop. And I am guilty of going hungry, which just means I am purchasing way more than originally intended. And then I noticed, to gain some control over that, my wife and I, especially during the pandemic, we switched over to, we would shop online and just do grocery pickup, right? But what wasn't happening is there wasn't a comparison between different places. It was just, hey, these are the two places we normally shop. And depending on what we needed, like items wise, it's like, oh, we prefer option A over option B this time, and vice versa. And what I'm curious about is, I know there are so many people who, when they are looking to save money, they spend more time and energy kind of focused on, but I can get this particular item cheaper here, and I can get this other item cheaper there. And so I actually would even save more money if I wasn't just comparing the overall cart, but if I could get down to the item level. What are some of the dangers or just some of the things that you're seeing with that mentality?
Yeah, I think that we intentionally built Stretch to be a list and not a cart. So you build your list on Stretch the same way that you would, writing on the side of the fridge or texting your spouse, right?
Hmm.
You write milk. You don't write 1 gallon skim, from Boren Farms, right? Like, like you know what milk means, right? And so Stretch is actually learning that the more that you use it, the more we understand what PB means, jiffy, crunchy peanut butter for your family,
Mm.
right? And so the more you use it, we understand your shorthand, and that's a big piece of how we do it. But if a store doesn't carry Jif crunchy peanut butter, for whatever reason, that's not in their repertoire, we find the next closest product that would fulfill your intent to buy peanut butter for your family this week, right? And the rise of Aldi and Lidl and a lot of store brands allow people to save more if they are not brand loyal or very specific. But there are some things, for example, if I come home with Pepsi, no shade to Pepsi, my wife is going to send me back out to the store to get Coca-Cola. That is just a family preference. There are probably certain things in every family where it's like, we don't care. We like that brand. This is our thing. But being able to
Mm.
understand on the things that you are more willing to be open to trying something new because it can save you a little bit. Or we can imagine, down the line, maybe it's a little bit healthier, maybe it's organic, maybe it's local, right? Those are all other augments that we can imagine building into your family's smart shopping list. But for now, we're starting with price and having people focus there. But the trick with chasing the deal is, one, driving all around town to save 50 cents maybe is not the most economical thing. You can make the math work, right? I worked it out. The average American vehicle, the average price of gas, it's about 35 cents per mile is about what you'd have to save. So driving to save 50 cents, you drove 1 mile, maybe you could make that math work. But the psychological aspect of it, the time that you're spending to go to multiple stores, is the other piece. Like Marianne said, that it's a different cost, right? And so I
Mm.
think that being able to just know, hey, this is an expensive chore that I have to do. Here's the most efficient way to do it. And I can feel good that I did well for my family this week. That's really the feeling that we want to go for. The other piece of chasing deals, and this is something that I have seen with members of my own family, is you end up with a lot of stuff that you're like, well, I bought it because it was on sale, and then you don't use it, or it expires, or it goes bad because it wasn't in your meal plan for the week, or your family had never tried
Mm.
it before, and you're just like, I just wanted to see what would happen. And so you end up wasting it, which means it ended up being actually more expensive than the value you got from the savings that you accomplished. And so I think
Mm.
that that's where, thinking about it holistically as, where does this fit into our family strategy, into our plan for the week? And if it's just for fun, somebody came up with a new flavor and they're giving you a coupon to go try it, cool. That's what marketing does. But as far as an actual plan, I think it can be a slippery slope if you don't know where it fits into the bigger picture.
You're absolutely right with the psychology of bargains and bargain spending. It's all about the hunt for the deal, but what gets lost in there is you're not focusing on the total amount. You're focusing on how much money can I save, not how much money am I spending. And a lot of money can be lost in the details, whether you're going, store to store trying to find it, or you're not even consuming it when you buy it just because you got it for a great deal. The total cost that you're seeing on the app doesn't reflect, oh, I got it on sale. Look at this great deal. It just is lumped in with the total cost of your grocery list. And so you're not sucked into the details of the price of individual items. It's collectively, you're looking at how much you're spending and if I can save money at one store versus the other.
Marianne, if I were sitting down in the seat of a client with you and you were kind of pitching me this idea that, well, I'm just looking at the total amount that I'm spending and I'm not seeing the details of like, did I get a good deal? And if I communicate it to you, but that is important to me. Like I want to know that I'm getting the best price on certain things. How would you maybe talk me down from that or help guide me in looking at that through a different lens with a different perspective?
If I had someone that was focusing on the individual items and really worried about, capturing the deal within that, I would want to go a step deeper and see what is it that is driving that need to find the bargain. It has little or nothing to do with the actual number. It's feeling that security and feeling that control of I'm able to get something I need for the price that I'm willing to pay for a cheap price for a good deal. But that is very it depends on the item because did you actually need the item in the first place, or did the price determine whether or not you wanted it? And so really getting to that deeper reason of like, what are you actually looking for? And almost all of the time, it's that sense of control when things feel so out of control that I can control what I spend. But when you're looking at those individual prices, it can get to be a very gray area between, is it the price I'm wanting or is it the item I want? So again, this app is great at getting rid of that dilemma, that psychological barrier.
I think there's a lot of truth to controlling the uncontrollables. Like, you can't control inflation, but I can feel like I can control inflation if all of a sudden I'm, you know, hunting for those bargains more often and I'm making sure I get that best price. I think one of the other ways to help our listeners maybe alleviate some of that is we often talk about, as you're building out a budget, how to even put guardrails in place around like how much should you be spending each month for your family size. And I'm curious, Andy, what, if any, conversations or research or insight do you have as you've been building out this app into kind of that part of the equation where it's like, I need to set a number and then that number kind of helps drive my decision making when I'm even putting together the list?
Yeah, it's funny to say that we actually have a new feature we're working on, which is as you build your list, we have a running total of how much you've already committed. So even before you go to the
Mm,
store, we'll say obviously it's a range because it's different at every store, but each time you add a new item to the list, we're working to see if can we put what your estimated total will be actually on the list even before you get your search results to know which stores carry those things. So, kind of
mm,
a collective as you're building your list, hey, we just hit $80 for this list. Maybe we should take the Oreos off so we can make room for something else, right? And
interesting.
fingers crossed you actually stick with the list. But I think that the one of the things that really encouraged us to go all in and just kind of like really helped us know that this is a problem worth solving. And as the thousands of shopping we talked to last summer, as we were just getting the plans in place for this and thinking about how we would build it, 84% of the people that we spoke to, and this was last summer, so this is even before some of the more recent price hikes, 84% of the people that we spoke to said that they were worried about paying for groceries next month the way that they paid for them this month. Meaning that whatever they had budgeted this month, they didn't know if they would have that much to pay for groceries next month, or that
Mm.
they would be able to get as much as they got this month. And where that really struck us was the overall number, 84%. Interesting. But then when we broke it down by socioeconomic class, when we looked to see what's the biggest change in how people were buying groceries, the low income and blue collar families had the smallest amount of change in how they were buying groceries. And it was the middle class and upper middle class families that were making the biggest changes. And we thought about that and we're like, well, that seems counterintuitive. Why is that? It was because the lower class families, the blue collar families, had already changed as much as they could.
Mm.
They had already traded down on brands. They'd already traded down on stores. And because of the cost of inflation, because of the cost of food going up, it was reaching people who previously had not had to be as conscious, be as budget minded. And so I think that's where, we just continue to see this is a problem that's affecting everybody, right? People are trading out of a lot of behaviors that they would have done last year for 4th of July that they're not going to do this year for 4th of July. And I think that
Mm.
it's becoming to the point that everybody's feeling it, which is why as we go into election season, groceries are going to be on the ballot, right? Everybody's
Mm.
talking about this. Every candidate is talking about this. Like it's, gas and groceries, gas and groceries, gas and groceries, right? Because that's actually what Americans are worried about right now. And I think that
Right.
it's why we're working as hard as we are to tell as many people as we can about what we're trying to build with Stretch, because each new person that signs up for Stretch gives us that much more that we can share back with the grocery industry about just how hard it is for people right now. And so we're trying to be kind of that consolidating voice for shoppers like us and our families.
Yeah. So we've been kind of talking about some of the features, kind of sidebar about this app. Why don't you tell our listeners specifically, like, what is Stretch and what is it truly designed to do and where can they get it?
Yeah. So stretchgroceries.com is our website where you can read all about it, or you can just search for Stretch Groceries in the App Store. But the basic experience with Stretch is you upload your grocery list for the week. However you wrote it, whatever your nomenclature is, whatever you put on the side of your fridge or text to your spouse, Stretch turns it into a digital shopping list. And then we go look at every store close by to you to see which stores carry those products or similar products. So you can know what the total price for your entire shopping list is before you leave your house. So we look at every local store that's on the platform. We're at about 30,000 stores nationwide already, but we're adding thousands more every month. And so we're hoping to find the regional players, the mom and pop stores. We want them to be able to be on the platform as well. But we started with the big national brands as we kicked off. And the more you use Stretch gets to know you and your family and your preferences. And we're able to make sure that, in the future, if we see something that we know your family loves, could we send you a notification that it's on sale and maybe it's a good week to stock up on that thing. Those are all things that we're toggling, to think about the fact that, all of this information exists, right? This is not, some buried treasure, right? All the information is out there. It's just not organized very well, right? And I think that's where, going back to, why we decided to go with a full list price and not individual item prices. Individual item prices, probably doesn't make sense, 25 cents here, 50 cents there across a large basket of goods, it does. When you look at pricing transparency in travel, for example, right? I'm from Texas. I'm going to go home and see my dad for Father's Day. I'm probably going to fly American Airlines because I've flown them for a while, but I'm not going to go to AmericanAirlines.com to buy my flight. I'm going to go to Expedia or Kayak. I'm buying a $500 flight, and then there's no way I'm not going to price compare. But
Mm.
when you look at how much families spend on groceries, they spend thousands and thousands of dollars, and they're doing it blind, right? They're doing it with no comparison. They're just like, I guess that's how much it costs. And that was kind of the piece that, we just were like, wait, why is this solution not exist yet? And that's why we decided to build Stretch. So pretty simple. It looks pretty simple and feels pretty simple when you use the app. But on the back end, it's it's a lot of work to keep track of. We will cross 1 million products in our database in sometime this summer, and keeping track of all those prices with all those all those stores is a lot of work on the back end, and our team is incredible. Very proud of them. But the goal is to just make it simple to know before you leave your house, whether turning left or turning right. It'll save you 20, 30, 40, $50 this week.
Yeah. It's amazing because, as you said, like, it's not as if this concept doesn't already exist, but it's a concept that, as we think about it, it is for individual items. It's an individual flight. It's an individual home on Zillow. It's an individual, like even Gas Buddy, where you can kind of find out where the best gas price is, but it's one commodity versus this is really brilliant. It's taking, we consume so many different commodities from the grocery store. And instead of just looking at the individual, oh, I can get it for 50 cents better over here. It's, hey, what does my list look like at this store versus that store? It's brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, inspired by the folks at Gas Buddy. I had the chance to meet that team, a few years back, and I was kind of like, but for groceries, that would be it. So the timing was finally right, and we're excited to be rolling Stretch out this summer.
Marianne, I want to come to you for a moment 'cause as you think about this from like that, just the behavioral side of things and the tendency to overspend and whatnot. I'm curious what insights or what questions you might have about that element.
I'd be curious to know if you've seen this, Andy, talking with people that have used the apps, but from a behavioral standpoint, it is really brilliant to focus the prep and control around I'm going to go store to store and get individual items for cheaper. Now you're looking at the list. So what can I do beforehand to maybe decrease the amount of items I'm needing to purchase? Because that is something you can control. It takes you out of the store quite literally, and you're prepping beforehand, you're making the list. And if you take it a step further and maybe even before you make a list, maybe you need to meal plan. Maybe you need to look at what you have in your pantry, in your fridge right now. What do you need to consume before you even go to the store? Have you seen or heard from people that you've talked to that has really changed their approach to even creating a list?
Yeah, yeah. My head of product is going to love you for saying that. She used to work at Grubhub and Hungry Root, so meal prep, companies, and so she's very excited to get recipes built into our app as well, to be able to be helpful, right? If you look at what's in your pantry and your fridge, what's one item you could add to your grocery list that would give you another 3 meals? Is with what you already have. That's a future state. We don't have that yet, but it's something we're thinking about. But one thing that we have observed is people have kind of 3 different types of grocery lists. There's your weekly, there's your stock up, and then there's your event based. And so those are kind of 3 different types of grocery trips. And your weekly list, we find it's about 70% of the same as last week, right? It's the thing that you're going to go back and you're going to get, but it's kind of nice to know those things are already on your list. You're going to buy them every week. Like for me with, my daughter's almost 11 months old, it's berries. We're buying a lot of berries these days. She consumes berries as if it's her job. So those are always going to be on the list, right? But then, when I have my in-laws in town, we're going to have an event list, right? They're coming in for Father's Day. Or if we're having friends over, right? We're going to have, a recipe list, right? And there's the stock up list, which is maybe, we're comparing, the Costco versus the Sam's Club, and saying, hey, does it make sense to buy that much of something? Will our family consume it? So thinking about the different type of lists, so we see a lot of people maintaining a few lists as they go. But that's really, the way we want, anytime you think, oh, I should buy that, open up Stretch, add it to your list, close Stretch, right? That's kind of the most frequent reason that somebody's opening Stretch is just to add another thing to their list. But then you click get recommendation and Stretch goes and does all the work for you and comes back with, here's your options for this week. And so I think that just kind of knowing that you're not alone, and knowing that you have a buddy or a helper, somebody who goes out and scouts the local stores for you, and then you can make a decision based on those results. That's something that we're continuing to see people just really really appreciate, to know that they're not having to like guess all the time. We say don't grocery alone, let Stretch do the hard part, and that's kind of our North Star for what we're trying to do to simplify things for shoppers.
That's fantastic. As you're sharing that, I'm thinking about how while the app becomes this buddy, this partner in helping you to save money in the long run, I think there's a couple of things that our listeners can kind of pick up on. Marianne, you had kind of addressed it when you asked about pantry shopping, right? And so even that behavior, first off, go into the pantry, and then Andy, you added like it's the idea that eventually, the app might even be able to say like, hey, I have these things. What else can I do to build out meals for this week? But that's something that people can start doing now if they're not already doing it. Shop your pantry, go in and take a look at what you have. I know that my wife and I have been doing this recently, and we're actually like celebrating the fact that we're eating through some of the stuff that's in the freezer, or some of the stuff that's in the pantry, that it's like, oh, we're actually finally getting through some of these things that otherwise are like maybe not our favorites, maybe not our go-tos that particular week. So it's easy to say, oh, well, I want this other thing instead, so I'm not consuming this. And it's like, no, like you have hamburger meat in there. We had like these steaks that was like, oh yeah, let's finally do something with those. Just thinking about implementing those behaviors now, and looking forward to the time when the app will even be able to help in that area and say, I have these 3 ingredients or these 3 items, what can I make with them?
The kitchen is the epicenter of the home, right? When in trying to do research for Stretch and thinking about things, shoppers roll in and tell us lots of different things about it. But when we asked, can we see your shopping list? They're like, no. Like, no, like that's personal, right? Like because it really says so much about your house, right? Like what's on
Mm.
your list. So I've stood in front of grocery stores and they're like, hey, show me your grocery list and I'll give you some swag. And they're like, nah, I'm good. I'm like, we're okay. Like they don't want to show you the list. And because it does say a lot about your house, like what are you buying frequently and things along those lines. So yeah, it's a personal thing. But I think that, it's something that using technology, just getting smarter, right? Creating lists, use your favorite AI. Say, hey, this is what's in my pantry. Yeah, like what
Mhm.
else could I buy? Like, what else could I make? I took a photo of my pantry and I was trying to challenge, my favorite AI. And I was like, what could you make with this? And it got kind of close, but I think
Yeah.
that in the future, like computer vision is becoming so much smarter at being able to recognize items that, we can imagine that being, to your point, shop your pantry, shop your fridge. Like, we can do the same thing and be like, this is what I already have. What am I missing? And
Mm.
somebody once told me that we should build a smart trash can. So every time you are going to throw something away, it just scans the barcode and adds it to your shopping list. So all fun things that we've thought about, to see if we could make it easier for the shopper.
Marianne, I have a new a thought for another episode where we have to talk about the whatever the behavioral psychology is around not wanting to share a shopping list, because I'm guessing there's no, but think about it, Andy, you said like it is personal. It kind of shows some insight to the home. And I'm wondering how many people are out there feeling shame and guilt about the things that they purchase, because we just live in a hypercritical society that wants to just get on everybody about everything. I can't believe you feed that to your family, that sort of stuff. But that's definitely a different conversation for another day.
For sure. I was just going to share what you were saying, Nino, about challenging yourself to eat things that you have on hand, challenging yourself to not go to the grocery store. I think that it does make sense discussing like a psychology of not showing someone your grocery list. Is it because you're ashamed that you're buying so much when you have so much at home? Is it because you're ashamed at how much pre-processed foods there are when you're wanting to eat healthy? There is a lot of psychology to that. But even before you go to the store, see how long you can avoid going and then prove to yourself what you actually need. And then get on the app to say, how can I get those items at a cheaper price? You really do have a lot of areas of control as long as you do the work. And fortunately, we have technology on our side that we can help to accomplish those things.
Excellent. The other thing I want to share with our listeners as we wrap up is we often talk about having just guardrails when it comes to how to even establish a number around groceries. And so while this conversation has really been more about, making that list and getting it at the best price, sometimes starting off with, but what is the number? And so the guideline, it's just a guardrail and it's just a place to start. But here at New Money Habits, we teach $200 to $250 per person per month. So if you have a family of 4, you're looking at anywhere between $800 and $1,000 in food a month. And that might sound like crazy, but given the amount of inflation over the last couple of years and whatnot, it's just the realistic number. It's what it takes to feed your family, and feeding your family and putting food on the table at the top of your budget is okay. You have to feed yourself and your family. And so I like to share that guardrail in hopes that it gives people permission to go and take care of a very important need, a basic need, that is feeding your family. So just wanted to kind of share that guardrail for anybody who might be thinking, but where do I even get started? $200 to $250 per person per month. Any final thoughts, Andy, that you would like to share with our listeners?
I love feedback. Feedback is a gift. If there's a way that we can make this app better, I'd love to hear it. I read all the comments. There's a big feedback button in the app. So if you see something that, could make it better for you, probably make it better for other shoppers. We got to work together in this crazy world that we live in. And so hopefully the Stripe community can be a source of a little bit of relief and a little bit of hope for everybody, that it's expensive to feed our families, but it's not impossible.
Awesome. You did say that stretchgroceries.com and Stretch Groceries in the App Store is where you can find the app itself. You also said that you're going viral on TikTok. Where can people find you?
The Andy Ellwood is my TikTok, and then we're also Stretch Groceries on TikTok. But it's amazing how many people have thoughts about groceries on TikTok these days, and I'm happy to be in the slipstream.
Yeah, it is definitely a conversation that kind of comes back up time and time again, because as I just mentioned a moment ago, it should be at the top of your budget. It is an important basic need, and none of us are getting around the rising costs and just the necessity to put food on the table. Andy, thank you for taking the time to spend some time today with us, having this conversation and sharing this amazing app. Really appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on.
That does it for this episode of the New Money Habits podcast. Follow us on your favorite social media platform. Want more? Become a New Money Habits member and start your insider free trial today. And until next time, remember that the peace Jesus gives is a gift the world cannot give.